The Eagles, of course, the #1 seed in the NFC. A lot of questions about this football team, of course, the way they have finished this 13-3 season, particularly on the offensive side. So with that in mind, today we'll bring in Doug Peterson. We'll talk about the defense, but we want to begin by talking about the Eagles offense, presented by Golden Nugget Jeweler, where Philly gets engaged. And to do so, I bring in the Hall of Famer, Brian Westbrook. Happy New Year to you, B. West. How you doing, man?
Happy New Year, Dave. Happy New Year to Eagles fans all across the country. Certainly glad that 2018 is here, and the playoffs are a couple weeks away. I'm excited about that.
And the Eagles fans all around the world, Brian, are nervous about what's going on with this football team. So let's kind of put everything in context, not specifically talking about the Dallas Cowboys game on Sunday. An ugly way to finish the regular season. The good news, nobody got hurt, but the Eagles playing Nick Foles for a quarter. Nate Sudfeld finishes things up. A note about Sudfeld. What did you get out of the performance from Sudfeld as you look at him in the big picture?
Certainly a young man that has a lot of potential, has a nice arm. You can see the zip on the ball coming out of his hands. I think he also showed some athletic ability, the ability to run just a bit. That's something to be excited about. You kind of get flashes, brief flashes of Carson Wentz and his ability to escape the pocket in Sudfeld. I think that's something that hopefully down the road, many years in the future, something that we can build on and something that we can be excited if. And really, truly, we hope that Nate Sudfeld never plays for us, because that means Carson Wentz is our franchise quarterback playing for the next 10, 15 years. That certainly should be the hope. But if that's not the case, I think Nate Sudfeld did show a little glimpse of things in the future if that is the way that we want to go.
All right, Brian, the Eagles getting Stefan Wisniewski back at left guard. That is important. Let's break this down unit by unit here as we look at the offense when it constitutes for the playoffs. Offensive line, how do you feel about the group?
You know, I think this group, it has been a work in progress. They are not a liability, as big as a liability as I've seen some of the games in the past. Something that they have to continue to work on as offensive line play. They have to be able to protect their quarterback. Nick Foles is not the type of quarterback that's going to be escaping the pocket, that should be hit similar to the way that Carson Wentz had the ability to move around and do those types of different things. He's a different type of quarterback, a guy that needs to be protected. For us to win, we have to protect Nick Foles, and that means our offensive line play has to be stellar. And I think they have the ability to do that. But, you know, if they don't, we're going to be in a lot of trouble.
Brian, how about the wide receivers? And then I'll include Zach Ertz, Trey Burton, and Brent Selleck in that group. As you look at the playoffs here, and the weather will be cold, and the defenses will be better than what we've seen here most of the year, how do you feel about the group of pass catchers for the Eagles?
What we've seen over the last couple of weeks, Dave, is defense is saying we're going to play with the middle of the field safety, and we're going to play man-to-man across the board. And we're going to challenge your receivers to get open versus man-to-man coverage. We're going to challenge Nick Foles to throw the ball in those small windows. And unfortunately, what we've seen from our wide receivers in particular has not been a lot of success getting off the ball and making Nick Foles comfortable throwing the ball in those small windows. I think as far as the playoffs goes, our wide receivers need to do a much better job of creating space, getting some separation from the defenders so that Nick Foles feels comfortable throwing the football to him. Now, Zach Ertz certainly is Nick Foles' favorite target. He's a guy that he feels comfortable throwing the ball to. Zach Ertz does a pretty good job of getting off of press coverage and things like that. But I still think for him, he has to do a better job of getting off of press coverage. As a group, all of our receivers, tight ends included, they need to do a much better job and pick up the slack because, again, Carson Wentz is not back there. It's Nick Foles, and they need to improve in order to help this team have a chance in the playoffs.
All right, so 3 more areas here. The running backs, Nick Foles, and then I want to get into the game plan as well. How do you feel about these running backs first, Brian?
Well, I think the running backs is a group that you can hope to use in the playoffs, get the running game going, try to establish that, eat up some clock, keep the ball away from the other teams, and take some of the pressure off of Nick Foles. I would love if Doug Peterson, as a play caller, got all 3 running backs, LeGarrette Blount, Corey Clement, as well as Ajayi going in the playoffs. That's something I think you can lean on just a bit. I want to take some of the pressure off. And really, the one thing I really want to do more than anything is keep us out of 2nd and 3rd and long. We have to be productive on first and second down. And I think running the football can go a long way towards that.
And then Nick Foles, Brian, who has really kind of struggled in these last couple of appearances after a very good relief duty job in L.A., winning that game in the fourth quarter, 4 touchdown passes in New York. We have not seen Nick Foles look comfortable in the offense. How do you address that moving forward with Foles?
Well, I think the biggest thing, similar to what I just mentioned about the running back, is you have to take some of the pressure off of Nick Foles. These last couple of games, he seems like he's been playing with the pressure of the entire Philadelphia fans, everybody on that football team on his shoulders, and he hasn't been able to pull the trigger on so many throws. There were some guys open. There were opportunities for Nick to throw the ball down the field, and he just didn't pull the trigger. It looked like he didn't want to take the chance of making a bad play. He didn't want to make a mistake. And unfortunately, in the playoffs, you can't quarterback that way if you want to be successful. He has to let it rip, let the ball go, just go out there and play naturally. In order to do that, you need to practice. You need to practice in the same form and fashion as playoff play. Practice up-tempo, fast, and they have 2 weeks. The Eagles certainly have 2 weeks to get Nick Foles ready. These last couple of weeks, we don't want to see that Nick Foles anymore. We need to see the guy that played against the Giants, who let the ball rip, wasn't afraid to make a mistake. If that guy shows up in a couple of weeks in the playoff game, I think we have a chance.
And then tying this offense up, Brian, the game plan, the play calling, aggressive, conservative, how do you want him to play in the playoffs?
Aggressive. I mean, that's the only one way to play in the playoffs. You have to be aggressive. Go out there and you can't play not to lose. You have to go out there and to play to win. I think Doug Peterson understands the play calling and the playoffs. And I don't think that the play calling these last couple of weeks was terrible, but it certainly can be better. He has to help his quarterback out a lot. And I think in order to do that, you have to get that run game going again. And you also have to find some passes that Nick is very comfortable with. And that's why these next couple of weeks are very important to this team as far as practicing, setting the mindset, setting the tone for this football team. They need to be a physical team. They need to have the mindset that we're going to go out there and dominate. We don't know what the weather is going to be. It certainly has been cold these last couple of weeks. If it comes down to it, we need to be able to run the ball 35 to 40 times. And that's a mindset thing. That's something that can be established in practice. Doug Peterson certainly would go a long way towards that.
All right, so that is our look at the offense presented by Golden Nugget Jeweler, where Philly gets engaged. B. West, we will talk to you a little bit later in the show and do the same thing with his defense and the special teams.